As security professional, we are talking a lot about threat, might attack, trying to map the attack, but we are not thinking in with the overall industry, which area we are neglecting to secure enough. And the trend on the attacking should be the reference to see what is missed in a strategy. So you know my passion for infrastructure security, cloud, on-prem, hybrid. I don't care. It's still an infrastructure. It does have a different attack vector, surface, different opportunity for lateral move, but still an infrastructure. So the fact that network moved to layer 7, SD1 and whatever, change the way an attacker can manipulate things also remotely through an API. But we need to talk a bit more and keep it real on understanding which corner of infrastructure are critical but not enough secured. So today I want to talk about some practical cases and extremely recent, as you see from the titles. So everything into a modern infrastructure is even driven in terms of design and is heavily based on Kafka. Doesn't matter if you come from an MQ concept and you struggle to keep up to speed with the differences with Kafka, but Kafka is nowadays a standard de facto that allow feature that so far we never had in MQ. So each topic in Kafka does have a secret, and an access to that is critical, but it is one of those points within the infrastructure where, if compromised, you could duplicate what you need and even do filtering on the fly if is, for example, available KSQLDB. So for an attacker, be seated there is a sweet spot. And we are talking about misconfiguration, but we shouldn't forget that if a misconfiguration didn't get spot, there is a reason. Because testing sometimes is so narrow as a scope, and we are missing the point to enlarge the picture and see which misconfiguration could impact the security of the overall infrastructure. The sensitivity of the data that is passing through a Kafka topic can vary, depends on your implementation, but it's the capabilities to do a mirror stream. It's actually one of the most used also in data science when you need to put the data in data lakes and you are working with a high throughput. So the potential Kafka ready example in cloud is everywhere. There is no cloud service provider that doesn't offer a Kafka ready product. So it doesn't change where it is actually placed. It's actually critical. So don't think about misconfiguration only. Think that tomorrow could be a malware on that layer. Another thing is Rust is misunderstood. It does have a flexibility as a language to go from low-level language like C to an upper layer with WebAssembly. We never had that kind of scripting, but it's becoming popular also in Python. And so in another video, I discuss on what I suppose will be the trend in the space. I'm expecting more scripting to move into WebAssembly and way more client exploitation through that. But in the meantime, also ransomware is extremely keen to use something that each time is compiled and bypass signature, for example. Golang and Rust are becoming way more popular but the industry in terms of security is extremely having a strong background into Python. So you need also to be sure to have the right skill to understand it. But what is really critical to think into this kind of new way of designing ransomware is that the ESXi is always a big point. I'm scrolling, even if I don't look smart too much, because I was looking for the fact that this malware is a ESXi ready. So what it happened? Let's be honest. Hypervisor is critical, but it's not less relevant than before, because if you look into hybrid cloud, it's actually one of the spots that you use to deploy also Kubernetes. And having a pass on-prem is becoming way more popular. Think about products like Anthos. See, all container in-house are actually based on an hypervisor technology that add on top the Kubernetes stack. But you need to think that securing the hypervisor was always critical. We had historically a time where it was mandatory to have on the hypervisor itself something to monitor all instances in the hypervisor without installing actually something that the attacker could disable. That was a smart time. I don't want to mention a vendor because I'm not doing advertisement, but it's really even more critical than before right now. And we do find a lot of malware leveraging problem that on an hypervisor sometimes are difficult to be patched. So you need also to consider from a networking perspective that the hypervisor is probably having a plethora of VLAN. How smart you are and how you design is obviously portion of that. So you can have a good hardening, but if we move past conversation, you look at the documentation, is way more popular now to look for instances in DMZ, more exposed with an orchestrator from outside, and not always a hybrid private, but also hybrid public. See Antos design, for example. So that layer is critical for various reasons. The management access is one, the amount of network that generally are anyway converging into that layer, the opportunity to move laterally, and the fact that when is taken the hypervisor, you are actually having a core bit of infrastructure. The other point that I want to try to stress is API. I do all video and I'm getting bored of myself too, but it's not just a conversation of a Kong, what you use if you do use some product like a PGE or whatever. Everything is API. And GraphQL had a lot more way of attacking. So API are more critical than before. With GraphQL, it's not verbose anymore like before each REST, and it can be a query language. API gateway are becoming way more critical, but are not becoming way smarter. So align your strategy in terms of API, the gateway, which kind of visibility you have into that. Is connected to the SOC, having only the web stack visible from a threat hunting perspective and not the API is like to forget a side channel. It's not what should be done. Infrastructure wise, that is critical as well. I can add endpoint, the fact that right now most of the solution out there become useless if it's in offline mode. If tomorrow there is an IP table rules that send to dev null all traffic into the endpoint and doesn't actually talk home, most become useless. So we move from something where the local computing was extremely important to something that demand a decision to a cloud service. You need to understand how in this situation orchestrator are extremely important, not only the agent. I'm talking about Intune. I'm talking about the capabilities to see and get with OS query, for example, a multi independent from the platform multi-OS kind of standardization across when you are querying stuff, because it doesn't make any sense that you do a lot of work on the Windows side and really little on the Mac OS or the Linux one. On top, I stress that the pod, the fact that you recreate a pod shouldn't be understood as it's not important anymore to secure it. Service mesh, hardening the file system, for example, that is not writable, the way how you manage the tokens, the way how you police traffic across your estate, and not just a poor east-west conversation, but also different type of computing. Connectivity to database, that persistence across those are critical. And so the infrastructure is a fascinating environment because it's like when you watch an aquarium. You have different fish living together. You need to know each fish to know which kind of problem they could have. Infrastructure is the same. It's fascinating because each piece talk together. And infrastructure, even if it looks like became more complex, is actually becoming more easier. Everything talk API, everything is centralized in somehow in terms of identity, tokenization. So our job should be easier. But if you see the ransomware, you see many malware, you do realize how much we are overlooking things and underrating others. So Magic Heart is an interesting conversation because it looks like they don't exist. The mainstream talk only about ransomware. They are moving in the type of attack on client side in really, really smart things. Like for example, the favicon is something that it really is impressing the thinking behind that. The fact that you, sorry, you use the, you use the malware, the payload contained into a favicon that anyway is called by the browser. It's complex. You need to look into that. You realize how much we are underrating this type of threats. It's not just that we think that zero trust will fix everything. It's also the capabilities to look into this granularity. For example, an image. How do you validate an image? Find me something right now that it does that. You don't. So these one are the topic that the industry should talk. DNS, cloud DNS, everybody use the same DNS, a lot of takeover, third level domains and everything else. You should look into that as well. How you secure the DNS into a cloud environment. If you see in few minutes, I already listed a lot of stuff. The structure of infrastructure is becoming slimmer and more standardized. That means less time for information gathering because you can almost guess what is used. More paths, more standardization. How many are using Alpine? it's almost one of the most common to be used. So you need to look into how your picture is so standardized and which kind of visibility you do have. And as every talk, forensics. Don't forget forensics. I hope you found this talk useful. It's outside the normal infrastructure security course that I'm having. Check it out my playlist on YouTube. If you're interested, comment, tell me, and I hope you understood my passion for the topic and how much I'm trying to give a different signal to as it's up. It's true that teams within infrastructure are sometimes silos. You still have the network team and the CI/CD not fully integrated. There are a lot of process problem as well. It's not only technology. Infrastructure run based on people and processes that can be automated. Terraform security, it's another layer that, for example, if leveraged, is really nasty because you expect the Terraform to be capable to deploy things. So food for thought. Give me a like. At least I understand that somebody watched the video and uh, trying to find more interesting topics soon. Okay, take care. Thanks for watching. Cheers.